Hello, and welcome to What's the P, a show that provides a platform for gay black men to express themselves, their perspectives, and topics on the issues on the world around us and how it actually impacts our community. I'm Curtis Rusella.
I'm Justin Lamar.
And this is What's the P.
What's the P? Time to change the narrative. Black gay men talking real issues and they sharing it. Everything from dating, even talking hot topics. Mental health, sex, love, and everything around it. No longer will be silent. It's time for liberation. We need way more positive representation. Learn and connect. This is everything you need. Sharing their perspective. Now you knowing what's the P. Hey, what's the P? Let's go.
Hello, and welcome to What's the P. I'm Rusella Curtis, and this is What's the P. Joining us today on today's episode, we have Robert, we have Damien, we have our new guest, Jamal.
Hello.
And Ryan, a new one to the season. Today, we're going to be talking about interracial relationships. And the reason why we're talking about interracial relationships is because it seems to be a topic that is widely discussed on social media, especially when black gay men become tired of dating other black gay men. So let's continue this discussion in person and see how the perspectives have impacted others in your views. So the first question is going to be really interesting because, Robert, do you believe dating somebody deemed as Hispanic or Caribbean is considered interracial dating?
I think it can be. It depends on how the person identifies. I mean, I tend not to pin people in boxes. If you identify as whatever you identify and you're comfortable with based on everything that you've grown up in your surroundings and that's produced whatever your thought process is and how you identify, I support it. So it depends on the person.
What about you, Damon?
If you're an African American, you're interracial to me. So that's it. That's all I got for that one.
Well, I think it can be it's a little blended sometimes. It's a blurred line because if you let's just say you're Jamaican or you're Dominican and you blacker than me and your hair is tighter than me, like, is that really interracial dating?
Yes, it is.
Like, because in the United States, everywhere we go, you're going to be deemed as the black person. Like when you come up to people that are other than black, everybody's going to believe that you're a black person. And so when it comes to like you getting on the elevator, somebody a white woman clutching her purse, or if we get pulled over by the police, they're not going to go, oh, with white people they might give you a little leniency, but when they see you because you're Dominican or you're Jamaican and you happen to be dark skinned, they're not going to go, oh, you're Dominican and you're Jamaican. So we're going to let you pass because you're not really black.
Okay.
So,
but if we think about like what their growing up was, when you're from a Caribbean country, you're from, the islands, like you have a different sort of understanding of like what racism is and like what your ethnicity is. Like it's not a one-to-one relationship between, America and there, where you're from. And so what it means to be black is very different when you move outside of the United States. And so if you grew up and maybe you are, have melanin and tight hair, but if you grew up and you were very wealthy, then you grew up, sort of idolizing like England, which is what a lot of times happens when you have people who are from the Caribbean, is that they have a real affinity for England. And so if you grew up wealthy, in the islands, then like you probably don't see yourself in the same way that somebody who grew up in America and was black and only saw other black people in that context, your idea is going to be different. And so I don't know that it's interracial, but it's definitely like a cross-cultural sort of relationship.
Okay. Interracial.
I can't say that your struggle is my struggle just because we get treated the same in America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so if you were dating somebody of the opposite race, can you still be pro-black?
Of course. I mean, you know, a lot of people work in an organization and they don't necessarily support the whole goal or support the whole mission, but you've got to compartmentalize things because that's life. I don't think I mean, look how many white people there were in the whole Black Lives Matter protests and active activists, not, you know, they weren't passive in any way. So I think you can do both.
I don't know because no, I'm gonna just say this because there are some people that I know that are not black who are always interjecting their thoughts and opinions on me and how I should be when it comes to me being black.
You shouldn't be friends with them.
No, I'm just saying they believe they're here for the struggle. They understand the struggle. They read all the books. They watched all the movies. And so and it doesn't make them black.
No, and
it
they
doesn't
don't know
make
what
them
it's like to walk in your shoes.
right.
I never had to.
And so I just. Well, going back to the question, I'm kind of getting off of the question. So I don't know if you can be, if you're pro-black, I personally believe you're pro-black. You do everything that's going to benefit the race, the community. You do things that are going to make our community look good all the time and make us look like we're supporting each other. And I don't know if you can actually date somebody who is white and still be pro-black. Like why aren't you with somebody black if you're not pro-black?
Because it's an emotional relationship, you know, not just sexual. You might be attracted to.
No, it's not. I'm not talking about sex.
No, but I know. But you might be attracted to somebody because of, you know, you're emotionally connected to them, or they've got a character trait that you fall in love with or you like. That, you know, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, I find that surprising for you.
I'm not saying.
Let's get into it.
I'm just having a discussion.
Okay.
But I don't think.
I see what you.
Hold on.
So.
Why you like it
Okay.
surprising?
Go ahead.
No, because I do know Curtis is pro-black, but Curtis grew up in Kansas. And, you know, there's not a ton of black people in Kansas.
It's a lot of black people in
And
Kansas.
Even-
You know,
even if
who
you
is
go
it
into
Melissa
saying that.
Etheridge or Natalie Merchant's parents' thoughts?
Melissa Etheridge.
So he's had tons of exposure, probably more than a lot of us.
Yes, and I went to college in Phoenix.
And he went to college in Phoenix.
And so I think it has shaped an opinion.
Perhaps it's because you were kind of, I guess, deprived of it. You run closer to it
Maybe.
to overcompensate.
My blackness.
All right.
All right.
Your blackness.
We'll come back to
All
that. I was thinking about that one.
Okay. Beloved. You need to be doing some work, honey. But no, I do agree with what you're saying. So, like, a lot of times, like, if you understand the foundation of how this goes, right, being black, it's like, or saying that we're pro-black, it's not necessarily trying to say that, oh, I only want black people, right? Because, like, then you have to include Jamaicans, all those kind of things, right? Being pro-black is only American thing. Like, when we say Black Lives Matter, we're saying being black in America, right?
Sure.
So you have to understand the domino effect of life, right? So, like, though, yes, you have white people out there in the Black Lives Matter movement being very, very active, it's still, you would never know what it's like to be black. And then, like, your foundation would never know. We can't go back and change it. So you would never know where it started from. And so, like, if you look at it, it's kind of like, yes, it's hard for me to believe that if I'm pro-black, that I could see myself being or want to be with somebody that's not black.
Let me state this scenario. And this was a true thing that just happened. It really just happened. We were in New York, and I have a friend who is with a person who is not black. And we decided, me and my friend who is black, decided to go to a certain part of New York that was deemed to be black. But, you know, it's gentrification has happened, and New York is not what the New York was when I was in school. You know, it's not lean on me, you know. So we were like, we're going to go to the club, we're going to go hang out, we're going to go do brunch, and we're going to party at night. And we asked the spouse, who is not black, to come with us. The person said, I'm not going to go there because it's not safe for me. And I was like, what? And so that was a whole nother discussion. But then I'm like, with that person, Like, if you are pro-black, how are you with somebody who thinks like that, even though they say that they're pro-black, their spouse says they're pro-black, and I'm like, I'm not going to keep going back and forth with a significant other that's about what is uncomfortable and what is inappropriate for black people. And so I feel like if you're dating somebody who is other than black, you can't really be pro-black because you're constantly being with somebody who doesn't really believe
You have
that.
to explain a lot.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know that like, I think we have to think about what is the definition of pro-blackness.
Okay.
I think it's multifaceted. I think it's about, it's about how you see yourself. It's about what you prefer. Yes, certain like a preference. I think it's also just about the level of work that you've done on yourself, to understand yourself, to understand your history, to understand how, even though we live in this very individualistic society where it says everybody is an individual and you're making individual choices, to be able to understand that, like, whoa, my desires are actually shaped by what I saw. I grew up from Kansas too, 70% white state.
He's
You know what I'm
from
saying?
Wichita.
Like, so of course, that's
That's the connection.
And so my early experiences, I saw white dudes, around. Like, that's what I didn't see that many queer black people. I didn't see that many queer brown people. So my early experiences were not with queer black people. But as I grew and understood and started to see how these things fit together, I'm able to say, okay, well, I understand myself more. And so my requirement for my partner is that you'll be able to see my identity, my struggle, what I have to go through as a black person. And if you are not black, I have to be able to also cross and see where you are.
Well, see, that's what I was trying to say at the very beginning too. Like, I don't think being with somebody who believes that they understand the struggle makes it okay for you to say that you're being with them makes you pro-black, because they're never going to understand that struggle, and they can pretend, but it's never going to be there ever. And so if you know your history, you know how you've been oppressed. We'll just say white people. You know how white people have oppressed you and held you back. And you know what your ancestors have had to do to get when it comes to redlining, education, when it comes to social economics, when it comes to anything. And then you're being with somebody who their descendants, were contributed to that, and they still are.
Okay, well,
and so like, and even if they don't know it, people will believe like, oh, I don't have any slaves, but it's still, you're still.
So there was a foundation of
and
which
then so how do you say you're pro-black when you're with somebody who's essentially still oppressing you?
But Curtis, listen, we can't exist in silos. I think I'm pro-black because I think, economic, social, and political opportunities should be free, fair, and accessible for black people. And in some instances, it's not.
Some.
And it should be. It was getting better, but with Trump, things got a little worse, and it's like it kind of shook a certain group of people in the country, and they don't want to be the minority, so they are creating different oppressive voting laws, etc., etc. But we're not going to go there. I want to address the social aspect of, I guess, pro-blackness, which would be the relationship, because the relationship falls under the social aspect of it. And I think, what am I trying to say with this? You're going to edit all this out. I forgot.
It's okay because it's a difficult conversation, and it's a difficult
I'm saying
question.
you can't exist in a silo. You can't say that just because, again, my thing is, you can be with somebody and you're not really compartmentalizing things. You're just saying, okay, I like you. We're in the present. Nobody alive here today is responsible for slavery, but a lot of people have benefited from, generational wealth, et cetera, et cetera. And the person that I'm with, if I were in that situation and loved somebody from another race, they might not have had anything to do with that. So I can't wholeheartedly pin them in that box. I just can't.
And I don't want y'all to think that. I don't want anybody to think that that's what I'm doing. I want to do.
Well, you seem salty.
No,
I'm not putting nobody in a box. So, like, what I want to say is, coming back to all this, I actually still do not establish the boundaries to discuss this, right? It's a white and black race war. Like, you have to say, so when we start saying interracial, see, like, I have to include everybody else, right? I have to include Hispanic, I have to include anybody that's not black, right? And so the start of all of this is just the white and black. Absolutely. So, like, hey, I got to establish why is white and black interracial relationship as being white and black, why is it frowned upon, or where does that come from? And you do have to say it's the foundation. Mm-hmm. And though we are in 2023, right, you still have to think about, like, my parents, they went through what is the integration schools, right? Mm-hmm. Both my parents sat out of school one year when they integrated schools, right? And so they raised me as a person. So that's like my direct lineage of knowing what white did to black, you know, like, yeah. And so when you think about me going out here dating a white guy, right? If my parents were there, yours were there too. And I can't say where they might have sat at, but it's not that far. Like, we don't have to even go back to slavery. I can go back to the 50s. Yeah, the 50s. Yeah, so my parents were born in the 50s. And then, so that means my grandparents were born in the 1920s. So, like, yes. And then, like, my lineage to slavery, I'm third generation from slavery. So, like, my grandma wasn't a slave, but her dad was, like, the first generation out of slavery. Okay. So he was born in slaves. Yeah, so, yeah.
So let's go to the other one. The next question then. Do you believe that black gay men who date outside their race are looking for a come up?
I definitely think. Yes. I definitely think it's social status.
Absolutely. Yes, to some degree.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to speak
there are some people with some poor ass people.
Wait. No, but
when you see black men who are successful, they don't try to date other black successful men. They go straight to the white men. And it's a social thing for me.
I think you're talking about maybe black straight men.
No, absolutely not.
No, it's all of them.
Absolutely not.
No.
It's a social status thing in itself.
They never go for the
if they're dating a white man, if a black successful man is dating another black white successful man, he's going to say, I don't date black men in general.
Right.
This will be the first thing he say.
Okay, so then that right there, I'm finna go back to, like, all of these come from foundation. Your representation, when you talk about representation of being gay,
maybe it's
what have they did? Like, they have did interracial relationships, like, that's been your representation for a long time.
I don't think it's representation.
I mean, but that is, like, our representation of start in the media is, like, when you see gays, it's always, when you start seeing a black gay, it's interracial.
Are you guys talking about Billy Porter?
We're not just talking about him.
No, I'm just saying, like,
John
Lennon.
It's John Lennon.
But when you look at the rep commercial, baby, I don't know these people, but you putting us in there. I'm black, he white.
Every time.
Like,
every time. Yeah. But Don, let me say the reason why he don't date black men is because I think he was on Red Table Talk. That don't got nothing to do with me. Yeah, but what he said was that a lot of black men, they weren't ready to come out. They were still in the closet. So
there's black men that are out that are.
I'm telling you what he said because he's from Louisiana. He went to LSU, so that's why he said these things.
Going with all of that,
but did he live in New York and Atlanta?
So I'm still with all of that.
When he should have ran into some brothers.
What he's saying is not wrong, and I'm also put that in. This comes from white supremacy. Yeah, like, sure. Black people are behind because white supremacy. Like, hey, I ain't coming out the closet because I don't know that it's because of white supremacy, right? I'm thinking it's just because.
No, I just say
so wait, do you feel it's
that's a whole different topic?
Yeah, I think it. I think subconsciously they don't even know it, but I do think subconsciously they do believe it's a come up. Yeah. Every guy that I know that has a white partner that is I would deem as a successful, because they're still, I'm just saying general, that they're together, they deem it as successful. Mm-hmm. The black partner says that they are, like, encouraging me not to date black people.
They benefited from it.
And that it's better to date somebody that is not black.
Well, I can believe it, but you have to understand, like, this white partner is coming with less trauma. Like, or I want to say
different trauma.
Like different trauma. Yeah.
They come with trauma.
You come with the equipment to deal with trauma. So when I'm bringing you mine, like, you done had years of therapy prior to me, right? So you teach me these mechanisms, and it's like, yes, it's easier.
Says who?
I mean,
well, does that work? It's not a one-to-one.
It's not always the case, but, like, you do have to add into, like, the dynamics of their lifestyle has been different. So, absolutely. Like, certain things such as relationships, I can I'm not gonna necessarily say I can do them better, but I am equipped to maybe know a little. My mechanisms are a little different than yours, which could make us work differently.
And I kind of think it's kind of like, what do you call it? The white man riding up on the horse, the white horse. What is that?
Yes,
like
that's what I'm saying. So that's what I was
type.
saying. It's just like we have so many images. Like when we think about
The white man savior.
Yeah, those are the things that we see all the time. Those are things we see outside of just even gay world. That's what we see in the general public.
Yeah.
And so every relationship has some benefit, and social benefit is the reason why we have relationships. So there is always going to be that. But again, going back to the pro-black thing, if you're saying that you're pro-black, you're also saying that you're doing a certain amount of work to understand yourself and how you operate in the world. So if you know that your lens, all of our lenses generally, is a white supremacist lens. When we see white, we think that that's the best case scenario for us.
Okay.
And so, so
But
you've done
just
some
general.
work.
Yeah.
So you've done some work, and you went
Absolutely.
to HBCU. You got a very different experience.
Texas Southern.
Then me. That's a very limited experience, But like for those who maybe are still on that path, we have to continue to do that work to understand that. Okay, let me unpack my desire for a white partner. What does that even? Where does that come from? Why am I saying that? Why am I going after whiteness or even white adjacentness, right? So from my experience, I never dated a white man, but when I was younger, all my partners were certainly white adjacent, white Mexicans, and one parent who was white. Again, that's kind of where I'm from, but like I had to unpack that. Like, what was my desire for what I saw in porn and in TV and all of these things? Where does that come from?
I think as we stated earlier, I grew up in Kansas and there wasn't a lot of black gay men around, and I went to college I was a military brat, and I went to college in Phoenix, and there was at that time I think it was like 4% black people in Arizona, and so all that was around me was white men, and I found them attractive at the time. I still find white men attractive, but I literally took note in why I wasn't out looking for black men or talking to black men, black gay men. And it was something that I had to work on for a while because it just made me feel uncomfortable a little. And I had to think about why that was happening, especially when people were telling me they just automatically assumed that I was dating a white guy, and I was just like, why are you just telling me what race I should be dating or who you perceive me to be dating, and why wouldn't it be black?
Because the perception of you, like that's another thing that I think is a cultural thing, like for us, right? So if you have, as black people, and I'm speaking real general, and it's not like how I definitely see it, but as being black and being like where I come from, right, and all I knew was black guys, right, you still can get put up in this box of like, just like you saying, people were saying that you date or would date a white guy, right? It got done to me too, but it's because of my interest in life. Like early on, I had different interests than maybe the boys that I sat beside, right? And we were all black. And then going to
that's because you was the girl.
Hold on. Even outside of that, I get to Jackson State, and then like I got with other gay guys that are black, right? My interests are still different from theirs, and so it's kind of like I was always the one that was seeing that could be in a interracial relationship.
I get that too.
And so it's like I'm not for it, but I can understand where it comes from.
Do you think that has to do with like your open-mindedness?
Yes. So like, and then you have to also include. I'm always gonna go back to the foundation of everything. My foundation is very different than most black kids. Like, and so I learned that.
How so?
Okay, so statistically, they run with like black kids come from broken households, right? Then like you come from poverty, all of those things, right? And it's like. Though both my parents work together, then it's kind of like I'm not gonna say that we wasn't poverty stricken. It's just that the way of life for me.
You had opportunities.
Yeah, I was taking care of.
Yeah, yes.
And that's okay.
And then like growing older, even when I talk to like people, like other people, just for say my coworkers, right? And I talk about like how my parents are about me, right? And it's like I have this one guy coworker that says that at some point I need to stop taking advantage of my parents, right? For how much they do for me. And it's like, well, no, like my parents just believe that, hey, if you my child, I'm gonna take care of you.
Yeah, you have privileges that other people
don't have.
That are black don't have.
And so, like, to your family. Going to that, it's like you see that we have a construct that can be said to be true about the majority, and so that makes it harder on other things. So, like when you bring in relationships, like it's like, hey, dating a white person, we already are sitting different. Yes, you can be poor, but your poor in society is not the same as mine. And so, like, yeah.
Okay, so has everybody at the table dated somebody else that's other than black or?
I just had sex with a white man. That's it. I never.
Okay.
Twice.
So do you feel?
I did him.
Is that important?
Yeah, it is.
Yes. Wait. So
very much so.
Will you date out? Will you?
That's what I know, and that's factual.
Will you have dated outside your race? And dating doesn't just it includes everything. Do you think how do you handle not being a fetish or being fetishized?
I mean,
when you start saying stuff like "I want your black C word,
black cock,"
or "I love your black skin," and
your hair.
Oh my God! The first thing you lead off with was Black Lives Matter because I had someone do that to me one time. I always have when I'm in San Francisco. They always leave with stuff like that.
Oh sure.
Baby, if I was to move out there, I'll be well taken care of. That's all I would say.
Yeah.
But when they say stuff like that, yeah, it's a no for me.
Yeah.
It's a no in general.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a big no.
A big no.
Well, I have to say when I didn't start having or hooking up or dating guys until I was in my late 20s. And
late bloomer.
Yes. And when I did, I happened to live in Phoenix, and as I was unpacking dating white guys, I realized that I was only desired for one thing.
Yeah, from the waist down.
Yes. And they were not going out on dates with me. They were not asking me to go out or hang out with their friends. They just wanted me for sex. And it was very demeaning and very depressing because I felt like I was a good guy and I couldn't understand.
They weren't gonna bring you home.
Yeah, I couldn't. Because I had them as friends. They were my friends. Like, not the same people I was, but I just couldn't understand how come that was happening. Yeah. And so that's another reason why I do not want to date guys. I don't trust it. I just don't trust it. I feel like in some way or form I'm being fetishized, and I don't want to allow myself to go through that again or feel like that ever again.
I mean, I don't think I've ever been fetishized, but like you,
Robert, you
every time
we go out, my business out there.
No. Every time we would go out, people are always like, "Where are you from?
Yeah.
You're so exotic.
Yeah.
What is your accent?
Yeah.
You're being fetishized."
I don't look at it as I don't see it that way because
but they do that every time.
The scenarios you were just describing, I guess that's kind of nonverbal, and you've got.
You're not nonverbal.
No, because you guys were messing around. They weren't inviting you out to the dates, and then you've got the other scenarios, where guys are very verbal. Give me your black, whatever, etc., etc. So I think it's two different dynamics. I have never been in the verbal.
Robert, when we go out, they say that to you all the time.
Yes, but
you're
we're
just
not
so used to it from
bed.
everybody, so you don't think.
Yeah,
I think
that's where you.
That is the
we
first
probably doing
thing.
it to him. Like
No. That is the first.
I'm saying like you probably got niggas.
But it's
out
like
here
within
doing
the
it.
first 3 minutes, that's what happens with you.
Yeah, but I don't see that. Okay, I see what you're saying. I don't look at it that way. Now, if you were saying, if we're in bed and you're saying, give me your, I don't know, Mocha
And
something.
What's his name said? He said everybody kept asking for his shawarma.
Okay,
Who said that?
I'm not gonna say his name.
I
Robert,
know.
I think they fetishize you.
I would assume
I
they
agree.
do.
Yes,
Oh,
just like
okay.
you.
I would
feel
just say,
yeah,
like,
like just
he's
like
just
him.
oblivious
Like,
to it because
Just like
everybody's
you,
Yeah,
you're
oh my
black
gosh.
skin and
Yeah.
eyes.
I never had as much really contradictory attention until I moved to Houston. That was the first, again, growing up in an all-white place, you know that you're either white or you're black, and like those lines
Kansas,
are very,
yes.
very clear. When you move to Houston, Southeast Texas,
And once you be Louisiana and
it's very, very different. And so,
Diverse.
it's very diverse. And so you get anti-blackness from different, you get like different versions of it. So you get Hispanic people, I got Hispanic people who were being like,
Cute for a
one
black
dark, one, what'd you say?
You cute for a black guy.
Right, yes. One Afro-Latino guy was like, well, you're attractive, but you're not as attractive as me because I'm lighter than you. And I had never,
He would have got his
I
ass.
think the
it
Afro-Latinos
was
are the
wild.
worst.
There was a wild thing I did. And then,
They
then
are. They're
the
horrible.
white Hispanic guy one told me, well, you, this is like after we got done hooking up or something, and he was like, well, and I was like, it was summer, and I was like, whatever, I'm a little skimpy, whatever. And he was like, yeah, well, you can probably handle it because your skin is darker than mine. And just like different microaggressions that were like,
Because they think they white.
Right, that's what I'm
They
saying.
think they white.
And so when you,
So I can't do it, baby.
So you-
black
so-
man me.
and so for me, had I been younger and not done as much work, it would have been very, very different. But because I was a little bit older and had a little bit more of a racial consciousness and a little bit more of an understanding, not as super developed, but just like a little bit more understanding to be able to understand what I'm hearing from people who I'm in an intimate relationship with, and being able to understand that it's bigger than me. This person has work that they're not doing, and we're not going to be a good match because I have to do this work. I'm a black person in America in a very specific time and place where the information is available to me. I feel a responsibility to learn about these things, to understand, to unpack these things. Everybody's not there. Everybody doesn't want to be there. So I might physically think this person is attractive, but if that's all we can do, then that's a very limited relationship that at this point in my life, I want something deeper than that, because they get all the benefit and I'm the one with the baggage then.
Right.
And so for me, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, but.
Okay, what about? Oh, you already said that.
I did.
What about you, Ryan?
I have dated outside my race. I have hooked up, dated.
Do you feel like you were being fetishized when you did it?
No. This one guy, I actually feel like it was a me thing. It was because I'm looking over here and he white. Like, I can't take you home, and I don't want to take you home. But
They can't use your home. Don't bring them home. baby.
right. And so, I wasn't into it. But for him, I never asked, was I the first black guy he ever dated? But, to me, it didn't seem like he was. He was himself. I will say that it wasn't like I was trying to be down for the culture kind of thing. He wasn't racist. So then, you just a common, ordinary guy. And, we met out. I was out with my friends, and we made a joke about being awkward. And so it went from there. We had a lot of things, I'm not going to say in common, but, it worked. It just didn't work.
So that leads to the next question. How do you handle when you've dated? We've all seemed like we've touched on around guys that are other than black.
Yes.
How have you handled or discussed racially charged conversations?
It ain't make it that far with me.
Really?
We just had sex. It wasn't going no further than that.
What about you gonna be my slave? I'll be your master.
I don't even know. Black man tell me. We ain't even doing that like that. So no.
What about you, Robert?
I've had some conversations, and I think some white guys don't understand, the historical context of how black people see themselves and the legacy and the history of slavery and everything. And I have had to explain different things to people. And because I would probably be with somebody that's rational and reasonable, I think, being an effective communicator, I got my point across and they understood. I was talking to my partner just yesterday because I'm finally looking at this, the 1619 Project?
Oh, yeah, it's good.
And
I was going to watch it.
no, and I'm looking at it, and growing up, with a Caribbean education, I was telling him, I'm like, in history, we had so many different sections that dealt with slavery. You had the capturing in Africa, you had the Middle Passage, and then you had slavery to indentureship. So, everything from the beatings, the horrific accommodations and the ship and everything, I know that, and I was asking him, I'm like, so how do you, how do they just skip over that in school? Like, do they just touch it and go? I mean, don't you ask questions?
They don't even do it.
And then he was telling me,
you gotta watch Roots.
I know that he was reminding me that.
That's what they showed in school, Roots. They just showed the damn movie.
They just showed the movie?
They didn't talk about it. They just showed the movie. We're gonna watch Roots.
Then where they gonna start from now is gonna be Barack Obama and to now. Like, okay.
So I've just had rational encounters where I was able to explain, and they saw the point that I was trying to make. And
I do know. Talking with you, I feel like you are more educated about slavery and about history than most black men that I know.
I was the best graduating
and that's for
history
real.
Student in my high school.
Even though we still have issues. I still believe
you've got issues.
We got issues.
But what was the question?
How do you handle interracial relationships? Yeah. How do you handle or discuss racially charged conversations?
So in my 20s, my longest relationship was with a guy whose dad was from India. Okay. So and he would have been an untouchable. So very, very dark, very outcast of that society. But his mom was white, from Kansas actually. And so, but they grew up in South Africa. And so those are three different understandings of how racism works. Yeah. Three different...
Because they have the caste system.
Very different and different colonizers.
Yes.
And so I felt like there was a challenge there because though they had experienced colorism, racism because of their hue, they didn't understand it the way that I understood it because their privilege of being able to hop to different countries and, it definitely shaped them because they were darker and they did have these sort of effects of that of not being seen as desirable or
or you can only be at this
do
level
certain
in
things
life.
Yes, which is why his dad had moved to Africa anyway. But so it was different. We had to understand that our experiences. That's when you start to get into class differences and our experiences with me being from regular black people who are regular, versus somebody who's has different educational, benefits and being able to sort of move around, their understanding of how when we have, murders in America and so the anger that I will feel from that is very different than what they experience. And so it was we did have some very difficult conversations and I had to understand what an international perspective on this was versus this person having to understand what somebody who lives here and has seen generations and generations of this happening. So it was just different, it's different conversations.
I haven't had a relationship long. I just come back to avoiding things. Like the other day, we were having a conversation with a guy he's gay and he was white and he didn't understand why black gay men. We did the vision board party and we were talking about affirmations and we were talking about supporting each other as gay black men. And he was like, well, why would you need to do that? And I'm like,
wow,
are you serious?
Yeah. It's just encouragement, period.
Yeah.
But it was just weird. I think he was. I really believe he was serious.
He was definitely serious.
And I was like, I didn't even want to go because I didn't even want to go into why black men, period, or just black gay men would need to support and encourage and motivate and use affirmations.
Because they don't do stuff like that, and they don't really have to do stuff like that.
But if I was in a relationship with
they don't have to do stuff like that.
I would.
That's it.
I don't know if I could if I was in a relationship with somebody that was other than black that couldn't, I don't know if I could be able to keep my cool with them.
But somebody didn't invite me to their first vision board party.
I don't know. You got to talk to that person. It's a mess. So honestly, I don't think I could, I mean, I know I can explain myself, but I think I would not trust them.
I don't have no desire to date someone outside my race. I don't want to have to explain
why I feel
if I'm being honest, I don't want to date nobody because I ain't even attracted to you. Like I like my man to be black, and I like for my man to be black. Like,
I just don't feel like I have to explain like everything that happens in the black
community
community or what it is to be a black man. Also, to
you don't want to be
a gay
shiny,
black man.
Yeah, a shiny
I don't
toy.
feel like doing all that. That's draining.
It is,
and it's a lot of energy to like just have to constantly like explain like everything.
But in some instances, if you date somebody, an international person, it's the same thing. You've got to explain.
I'm not doing
well,
it.
no, well, I think they would identify a little bit, but because I'll just say when I was in college, I used to walk 4 blocks to a grocery store. I used to walk 4 blocks to a grocery store called Fry's, and when I would walk to the grocery store, every time, all my friends just happened to be, they were everybody other than black because there was really no black people. And I would walk to the grocery store instead of driving my bike. And when I was at the light, every time I would walk across the intersection, people would be locking their doors. You could hear it.
I lock my doors.
From little big-headed you?
But to have that, like, I would explain that to people, and they would be like, "What are you talking about, Curtis? They were just locking their door."
Yeah.
I'm like, the car locks when you turn it on. Like, so why? You've driven. Lord knows how.
Well, no, Curtis, this was a long time ago. The cars may not have had automatic locks.
I wanted to say that, but
you still locked your daggone door. Yeah. And I heard it, and you're at the stoplight at an intersection where your door should have been locked before I got there.
Yeah.
So why? And people were like, "Well, I don't understand it." And I don't want to have to go through that conversation because if I had a black partner and I said, "Hey, baby, I was walking across the street over at the grocery store, and don't you know these motherfuckers lock their doors?" And you'd be like, I would have to be like, "Oh, you know the history of the black man, and you walk across the white people scared of him."
I do it to them.
That's what I do.
Yesterday it was funny.
The other day
the other day it was funny.
I turned around and while she was getting out her car.
No, the other day it was funny. We was getting out of the elevator. There was too many white people out the elevator, and we just stood back and we were like, no. But we'll go to the next question. It may feel good.
You go ahead and beep.
Have you ever stated that you were finished with dating black men, and why?
I say it all the time as a joke, but that's just a joke. That's literally just a joke.
Why do people do that? Why do black gay men do that?
Because you do it because you all.
It's just like you said, I'm sick of this damn job. But you're going to go back tomorrow.
I never said I'm going to start dating black men, so I didn't have to say I was going to stop.
Like, you say you're sick of this damn job, you're going to go back tomorrow.
I never said I was going to start dating them, so I never said
I uploaded the picture.
But black men say that.
After this one relationship, I'm done with you call it.
Yes.
I'm
done with these innies, these ninjas.
And
we done with these ninjas.
I'm going right back to them.
Right.
You go back to the ninjas.
I'm going back to my colored men.
What'd you think? Have you done that?
I have never done that. But, I think, again, it's just important to find somebody who is in the same space as you are. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, their ethnicity is important, but if you're farther down a path than they are, you can still have problems with somebody who's black, And so it's just, to me, at this point in my life, it's more important to be, like, equally yoked in the mind more so than just like, oh, you're black and I'm black and let's go from there.
That's true. You gotta be compatible.
That's just me.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Also, you have to go with just like what he said about the situation, and then you come home to your partner telling that to the right. It's kind of like when you date somebody black, I mean, yes, I can be very, very open and all around person, but I still want to be able to say when I come home with this story, it's to somebody that understands and understanding and saying it could have been me.
Yeah.
And not I understand this
or
is
that
the
shit
world.
happened to me before.
Right. And so that makes it harder for me to going with the equally yoked, right? It's still a gray area.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so.
And I also want to say, so in my family, I had a lot of not gay, but like pro-black women who dated and who were married now to white men. And so I even though it wouldn't be for me, I understand that we all have so much trauma and we all have so much things that we're working with. And if that makes you happy and if that is something that you can, if they're your world, then I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
Because I know how much we all go through. And if you feel like that's going to be the thing that gives you a little bit of relief, or whatever, then I'm.
Basically, if you like it, I love it.
I mean, until they say something to me.
So we'll close out with the last question. Is sex okay? Is it okay to have sex with other races if you're not dating? If you don't want to date them, is it okay to go ahead and have sex with those other races?
It's okay for consenting adults to have sex anytime.
Yes.
And we feel that way.
Yeah. And then the way I look at it now is, you did it to us and we didn't even want it. It wasn't even consent.
So